We're managing revenues in the ballpark of 100 million. So I was born in Lebanon, in the Middle East when I was, and my family left when I was one. There was a big civil war and then that first year we finished at about $3 million of sales. Sort of, you can give away half of your pie, but if that's going to allow you to grow at 10x, it's definitely worth it. But dissolved very simply because we had a venture capital firm that invested about $10 million in this company, and we were raising a second round, and that second round was for a valuation of $150 million. Exercise more, all that stuff. One of them is like, I think I want to run a marathon again this year. I haven't done it in a while.
That's
So
awesome.
that's,
Wow.
yeah.
Do you have like when you do your goals, do you have them like written down or you kind of just
Yeah, no,
tell them
I
there?
write that. Yeah, I write it down. I write it on my notes, on the phone, and I have like short term, long term. I'm sure you do the same, right? I mean, it's just like it's on the phone, it's right there, and sometimes I got to remind myself of what I set out to do. Um, Sometimes it's also about what I'm not looking to do, right? So I'm always stressed out about, am I doing everything that I'm supposed to do? Am I not doing enough? On my notes, sometimes it's like, hey, don't worry about this in the next 3 months. I write it down. Don't worry about it, or don't focus on that. So it's just not. I don't get stressed out about it.
Yeah. What works for you? Are you more like do you write down like your steps, or are you kind of just more like micro and macro goals and then you just kind of know what
So
steps to take and you kind of follow along? Or do you
so
have like
it's
a
funny.
schedule that you set out to be able to achieve those goals?
So the way I do it, and it's funny because I think it's a really good system, and I'm trying to get my kids to listen to it, but they just don't care, obviously, because they're kids. Um, but I have a note that's sort of like a global objective note, and that's basically what are my objectives for the next 2 years, and I list it. You know, so I run a few companies, so I listed by company, but I also um, drill down to the personal level, right? So it could be as stupid as, hey, um, go on vacation more, or plan more exciting vacations, to again, fitness. Like, what am I trying to do? Not how many reps, but what are you trying to get at? Am I trying to run a faster mile or whatnot? And then at a very, very top on my global objectives, I try to come up with, I guess, what my mantra is. So like for this year, I'm trying to be more positive. So and that's because I'm always very analytical, very self-critical, but just from a mental health perspective, to look at things in a more positive way, and whether it's work, personal, or whatever, to say, hey, this was great, even if, as opposed to focusing on the flaws. So I have to read this to myself almost every day, because I have a tendency to, again, be very hard on myself. So every morning I look at it, hey, be positive, and you know look at the day, and embrace the challenge, right? Don't look at it as it's going to be like a hard day. Like, no, embrace the challenge. Let's problem solve. So I do that. That's my big objectives. But then I will have another note that breaks it down by quarter. And I also have, instead of a calendar, I do keep a calendar, but I have like a to-do list, so on a weekly basis, so that I'll put everything there. It's really quick. It doesn't have the formality of a calendar, but say it could be anything, right? So it's just you see your car, like, oh, I should get the car for a wash. Right? I pick a day, I put a note. It's like, wash the car, and then I don't have to worry about it, right? Anything from groceries to, hey, I gotta call back this friend because something's going on with them, to check your email about a specific topic. It's just put it into notes so I can check it off.
Yeah, and that's all in
Is that
notes.
is that I is that weird, or is that, like,
I think that's great.
OCD, or do you do that, do you do the same? I don't know.
I do well, everybody I've talked to does a little different, that's why I find it so interesting, like, what works for you? Is that all in notes, or do you use, like, Google Calendar to kinda block off any
All
time or anything?
I do everything in notes. It's not fancy, but it's right there, and it's very quick, and yeah, it's just, your day's flowing, right? So somebody comes in, right? Somebody comes in and say, "Hey, blah, 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 we should look into this," and "Okay, great idea," right? So I'll pick up my phone, it's like, "Let's do it tomorrow." Put a note, it's like, "Okay, tomorrow we're talking about this, done." Right? My wife calls me, it's like, um, I don't know, you haven't, you haven't, paid that bill or whatnot, or we should, make a plan. Just random stuff. I just put it in, right? Because if I don't do that, I'll forget. You know what I mean? So it's, how do you put in so much unstructured stuff,
Yeah,
ad hoc, and then you can reorganize it, right? Then you can say, all right, let me, if it's very important, let me put it into a calendar or whatnot. But how do you manage the deluge of little task or little things, or even a thought, right? I'm driving and I'm thinking about, oh, I should be looking into this, I should be looking into that. Well, it's always on my mind. So if I stop and then put it down in a note, then I don't have to worry about it now. And actually, I've been using ChatGPT as well. I'm trying to figure out ways of use ChatGPT. I'm kind of forcing it because I'm not a big evangelist like a lot of people are, like, they'll do every. I'm still trying to figure it out. Uh, I can have conversations with it. So now I'll keep it on as I'm driving, and I'll just um, tell it my thoughts, and it's keeping a journal. It's like an assistant. And in the end, I can be listening to music at the same time. Doesn't matter. But in the end, I'll say, like, just put all my thoughts together in a quick Word document or in a quick summary, and then I'll retrieve it.
'cause that's what I guess my follow-up question with that is do you, like, check it? You have, like, a time, like, every day, you just kinda run through your notes that you put in that day just to
Yeah.
remind you? Because I feel like a lot of times I put things in my notes and then it just so it's there, and then I'm still like, "Oh," you gotta go find it or different things. How do you organize with
No,
that?
no, that's why it's always like I have a note called rolling schedule, and everything is there. It's by day and everything, right? Every day I have my to-do list. So by the end of the day, I know exactly what I'm going to do tomorrow. I know exactly when I wake up, I know exactly what I'm going to do. And I check it. That's the last thing I check, so that, when I go home, my head's free, right? And in the morning, first thing I wake up, I look at my list. And it's just about, maybe the schedule will start with, in the morning do this, and I wake up at 6:30. I don't have to stress because I know exactly what's happening at 8. Okay, it's a meeting and so on. Okay, I remember that what that is now. Just, chill. Or let's say I want to make time to anything, work out, right? I want to make sure I work out tomorrow at 7 in the morning because I've got a full day, and I know that if I don't do it in the morning, it's just probably not going to happen at night, and I'm going to be pissed off. So I'll write it down, 7 a.m. workout. That's it. And then it's done. Then I know I'm sort of committing to myself that I'll do it.
Mm. What time do you wake up in the mornings?
So I wake up around 6:30, and I used to wake up closer to 5, but now it's like 6:30. I feel like I'm getting a little lazy on that.
Lazy, yeah, that's, like waking up in the morning, like, one of the like, my biggest my biggest thing is, like, waking up at 6:30 is about as early as I do it, and I'm pretty happy with that, but anything earlier than
Uh,
that how do you were you always like that? When did you start waking up early?
uh, you know, um, it's funny. I used to do better at night. So when I was a student, I was just always, waking up late and doing all my studying at night. Um, I don't know what happened. I guess after I started working, just, after 6 p.m., it's hard for me to do anything that requires real processing power. So if I have to do anything, I just started scheduling it in the morning, right? Instead of like, okay, let me work till 7, 8, 9, 10 p.m. Um, I just, forget it. Let's take that task. I'll wake up as early as 3 a.m. if I have to, but I just don't want to deal with it um, kind of around dinner time. So for me, like, dinner is like, I love food. I love to chill. So dinner is like sacred, and I just don't like to do any work after dinner. So that's how it kind of started.
And, do you just kinda, like, have, like, a time that you go to bed, you get your, like, 8 hours of sleep, and then you wake up, you work out, and
Yeah, yeah. I try to get 8 hours. I'm usually in bed by 10:30. Mm, Yeah, I mean it depends. I used to work better under stress, so I kind of found out like there's a good decade where if I used to sleep 5 6 hours, I was always tired, but I had this kind of this frustration, anger, or that just kept me going. Now I don't like enjoy that so much. I have to get my sleep.
yeah. No, that's awesome, that's awesome. When it comes to work, are you, like, very so you wake up at 6:30, do you do, like, more, like, routine stuff in the mornings, and then you get right to work at, like, 9 or 8, or you, like, you wake up and you're right on it?
No, so I wake up. So I have 3 kids. Now they're older, but when they were younger, I had a lot of stuff to do with the kids. Now they're older, they're teenagers, so I have to wake them up because they don't wake up by themselves. It's like especially my older one. It's a 5 step process to waking him up, and in the end, I usually kind of throw water in his face. So I tell him like I've got other things to do, but um, that's a process. I walk the dog because nobody else walks the dog, but I enjoy that, right? I walk the. It's kind of that's my time where I'm just relaxing, kind of thinking about the day and enjoying the calm, right? So usually I don't like to start any real work until 8:30 or 9 is where I'm in the office. If I have something that I kind of want to do that's personal growth type of stuff, it's not work related. It's you know something that I'm reading that I'm into. I've been trying to do it in the morning, but it's always something that goes on in the family that kind of disrupts that. So I can't really count too much on it.
Yeah. I always we have a lot of things I wanna talk about. One of the things, I mean, you're just mentioning, like, waking up your kids in the morning and how, uh I want you to introduce yourself, actually. I know we kinda just kinda, like,
Yeah, yeah,
got
yeah, yeah.
right into things, but, I want you to express who you are, your authority, but, I mean, a man as successful and important as you are, having kids that, sometimes don't appreciate how, like, valuable this time. I mean, I'm even super grateful that you gotta meet with me. I'm super excited to learn and stuff like that, and then sometimes, like, the kids are like, "What do you know, dad?" Like, "Don't why are you
Well,
waking me up so early? This is horrible." What are you
yeah.
talking about?
Well, just in case my kids ever stumble on this, they're great kids. I love them, and they're just being kids, so I get it. Because they always think that I complain about them, but I just try to push them. It's normal. So no, so my name is Omar Al-Midani, and I've got 3 kids. I live in Los Angeles, and I run 2 businesses, which I've started about within 5 years of each other. Um, and they're both successful businesses. And I have started and run a few businesses before that were less successful. Let's say that. Um, and I've been doing these 2 business for the last 15 years.
That's awesome, that's awesome. And I know we talked about it a little bit too much, you didn't wanna get into numbers, but just because, businesses can range from
Yeah.
$100,000 a year to hundreds of millions, you wanna give us, like, a ballpark of how big
Yeah,
you
I'll give you a ballpark. I mean, we're managing revenues in the ballpark of 100, a bit less. I'll say that, but
100.
it's definitely a lot closer to 100 than it is to 10. So we'll call it about 100 for now. And if it's not 100 now, it'll be 100 in a year or two. So that's the hope. That's the positive thinking.
That's awesome, that's awesome. Well, we'll go ahead and pre-call it Omar the $100 million man, so that's awesome. I'm super excited to hop in your story. Let's kinda backtrack a little bit. I wanna talk about where you grew up, what kind of life lessons you learned at a young age that kinda turned you into the entrepreneur you are now.
Okay, so interesting story. So I was born in Lebanon, in the Middle East, when I was and my family left when I was 1. There was a big civil war. Those of viewers who remember. So they left when I was 1 to go to France. Lebanon was under kind of a French. protectorate type of situation. So a lot of the Lebanese people went to France. And I lived in France till about the age of 13 until my parents divorced, and my mom had brothers that studied in Los Angeles, and so we left for Los Angeles. And that's where I continued my education, my high school. But I did my high school in my whole high school was French education, so I continued the French education here, and then went to undergrad at UCLA, still in California, and for grad school went to MIT in Boston. And then that took me to just New York and spending a lot of time on the East Coast. Met my wife somewhere through my travels, but she was at the time living in London. Had an H-1B visa. Do you know what an H-1B visa is?
Too sure.
It's a working visa. It's a special skills working visa. So I didn't have my passport until after I got married. So and after September 11, essentially, uh, there was a requirement for me to, because of where I'm from, to have to go to leave the States and actually do an interview with the CIA to be able to come back and work in the country. But my employer then, I mean, it was a big finance shop. There's no way they're going to give me it was at least a month off that you needed. And
Mm.
there was no guarantee that it was going to be a month, could be 2 months, 3 months. And obviously, I felt that, hey, if I go and talk to the CIA somewhere outside of the US, I don't know what to, I saw the movies from, in the end, I left and I went to London to be with my wife. That's sort of how I started my entrepreneurship journey. And long story short, then got my passport and came back. So, give you a lot more information you wanted to, but
No, that's
it's,
awesome. I wanna hear it all. So
it's interesting.
were your parents entrepreneurs? Did they have businesses?
So yeah, so my father, I think, is the one that really kind of gave me the entrepreneurship bug. He was an engineer, civil engineer, and then he became an entrepreneur, and he was very much mm, anti-working for a company. And I remember sort of one of the last few words he said to me before he passed away is, "Whatever you do, don't work for anybody." And I actually don't think this was great advice because there's a lot of awesome things you can do working for companies. So this is something that I'm trying to, this certainly inspired me, right? So it inspired me, but it also kind of, we're shaped by our parents, right? So there's how you think about what they say analytically and how you feel it. So I can say analytically that was probably not necessarily the best thing to say to me, but I felt it in a very deep way. So to this day, I'm not sure why it is that I'm an entrepreneur. Is it because I really wanted to do it, or is it because of that ingrainment? Um, so that's an open question. But yeah, that was definitely a very key moment for me.
So when you were in the US, you were in New York, you said, working for a company, but then you had to leave the US, and I'm assuming they let you go, or you guys just kinda, like, separated because you had to go, and then in London, you started your first companies.
Yes. So and it wasn't that they had to let me go. My visa had elapsed, and I had to essentially get it fixed. Um, and basically, well, I guess I was let go because in the end they said, look, we can't deal with it. So never mind. Yes. I mean, in a nice way. Um, when I went to the UK, there was an opportunity to get essentially a working visa by actually investing in a company. So what I did is because I wanted to start, I thought that was going to be an opportunity to start my own company. I actually work with the UK trade a trade department to find, I guess, a business plan. I didn't want to invest in somebody else's company. I went ahead and found a business plan, a group of scientists that had something that they wanted to do in a field that I liked. And so they were doing essentially a way to convert water into hydrogen for waters using this kind of a very compelling new technology. And I went ahead and put a bit of money in, got some partners. We put more money into that, and we started that company. And it was supported by the the UK government. So that's how I got started. But looking back, it was very very new, untested technology. I probably was too eager to jump in. I didn't do enough due diligence, and in the end, that didn't work out. But that's what got me started. Where 2 years of doing this, I realized, you know what? I don't think I want to go back into finance. Actually, I don't miss it. Um, I I want to continue kind of doing my own thing.
Wow. With that first business, was it one of those opportunities where you kind of separated, it was peaceful, or it was like a total fail, like bankruptcy, it was a horrible thing, or just kind of like didn't work out, so you guys just kinda cut ties and went off?
So this particular one was a very, low. It was a small investment. Company didn't do much, and it was a very slow death. It was a slow death because we got other people got actually that were brought in by the UK government involved. They pumped more money in. As they pumped more money in, um, um, you know, we became less and less involved as well. And at some point, I wanted to separate because I just didn't believe anymore in the technology. And I think that this was at a time where renewables were really big and hot. And I think the investors came in with the idea that they were going to use this company as, frankly, as a scheme to try to drum up business somewhere else. And I just didn't want to be a part of it. So I kind of removed myself. Um, and it was pretty, painless in that sense. The company that I started afterwards, that was a lot more painful because there was a lot of infighting with the partners, a lot of very different views. And the next company was called Climax Global Energy, essentially, and that was a company that took in plastics and recycled them into crude oil. You could take that crude oil and then send it back to the refinery. So essentially, you're taking plastic and you're out of waste plastic that has no value. You're pretty much printing money if the technology works. And the technology was very, very close to working. In fact, it was working at a small scale. We just needed to make it work at a larger scale that was big enough for a refinery. But in this experience, I had multiple roles from investor to co-CEO to back to investor and so on. But in this company, we had a lot of partners, a lot of cooks in the kitchen, defined leadership, a lot of shareholders, and it got nasty real quick.
Wow.
So it was a good question of yours in terms of, because when things don't work out, what happens? There's all kinds of scenarios. That second scenario was a bad one.
Because like, with business partners, I mean, the opportunities to have 2 like-minded people is not just sometimes twice the amount of efficiency, it can be like a 4x, right? When 2 partners with liquidity and different things get together. From your experience from these 2 companies having partners, when did you know when to, you know, cut ties, or, when is it, like, too late? 'Cause so kinda talk about that first one first, when you decided to go on your own and it was more peaceful. What's, like, a big lesson you learned from that going into the second one?
So on the second one, the second one was really taught me a lot of how I didn't want to work, and set the stage for how I work now with my partners, and makes me feel grateful every single day of the partners that I have. So this recycling company that I was involved in, and kind of, you think about it, this was the early stages of me being an entrepreneur. So I didn't really exactly know what that work involved. What does it mean to be an entrepreneur? I knew what it meant to work 16 hours and crunch numbers in finance. I knew what that meant. But being an entrepreneur, as you know, is much more, um not as structured, right? It's not structured. It's you're wearing all kinds of different hats. And I was finding myself almost every single day on a conference call in either a screaming match with somebody, or um, when we had these important calls, I would sometimes just pretty much down a half a bottle of wine or a couple of shots. So I would not um, scream, right? Because once you start screaming, you've lost, right? And so it just was very, very stressful. Um, and it the whole thing got dissolved very simply because which was awesome. It could have saved everything, but that's right about the time where the credit crisis happened in 2008. And so everybody was getting sort of, kind of, very cold feet about it. And at the same time, we had a certain technology pipeline to deliver on, and we were late. So risk went up. We were late on delivering what we were going to deliver. We were about to run out of money, and so the 150 $50 million valuation and cash infusion from the venture capital ended up being, no, you're worth zero. We're not going to put anything. I mean, just like that. And it happens, right? You can be worth a lot to nothing right away because of a shift in sentiment and so on. So that sort of blew up. But from that experience, I came out really with a very strong sense that my next step had to be a company that is not just a hope or a dream for $1 billion company and it's, all or nothing. It has to be something that's going to work. It has to be something that at the very least I can pay myself living, and not something that, sort of starved until you hit it big. And I have to enjoy what I'm doing with people that I enjoy working with. That was the key defining factor. Um, and um, when that opportunity blew up, I was in LA visiting family, and one of my close friends um, from high school also had sold his company, as he had a family company. He had sold it, and he wanted to get into business. And he kind of approached me and said, "Hey, do you want to do something together?" And what I remember is that for 2 weeks, we spent for 2 weeks, we were walking around the block of his house, talking about what company we would build. But at the same time, I was spending all my time telling him why I'm not the right partner for him, and he was doing the same thing for me. For me, but we were trying to kind of talk about the worst case scenarios, you know, um, and so it's almost like, talking about everything that could go wrong. And after 2 weeks, we decided, you know what, we feel comfortable. Let's do it together. And that's been like probably the best partnership I've ever had in my life. And what you said, 1 + 1 = 2. You're right. It's four. It's five. It's six because we respect each other. We have infinite trust. He likes to do what I don't like to do. I mean, he loves the accounting stuff. I hate it. Um, I'm bigger picture. He focuses more on the day to day. Again, we both have to kind of swap, but it's important. We both don't have egos, especially when it comes to working with each other. Um, and it's you know what it is you go through tough times. It's you're gonna have tough days. You're gonna have tough weeks. You're gonna have tough months. And when you have somebody you trust, um, they can pull you out, right? I mean, it's hard for two partners to be excited and positive at the same time. Someone's gonna have some struggles. Someone's gonna be down, and so this is where your partner can kind of pull you up, and vice versa. So I think it's key. Unless you're one of those businesses that just, you started and 18 months later you were $3 billion, everything's great, and that happens. We see that in the news, but I just don't think that's the general rule. I think the general rule is it's tough, it's a grind, and you're gonna have tough times.
Mm. Tell me about that business that you guys spent 2 weeks talking about what you're gonna do and what'd you kinda finally land on?
So so my partner had built a dental business, dental distribution with his family. And he approached me and said, let's, do the same thing together. And what I said is, look, I want to do something in broader healthcare. I also have experience in environmental technologies, so I kind of want to bring a new flair of, let's be eco-friendly within the space of healthcare, right? That's it. I mean, exactly how we do it, I'm not sure, but my coming into this was with my partner. I said, look, we're going to do it differently. I want to do it differently. I do want to make an impact, um, but I am happy to start off the way I'm happy to kind of shadow you the first 6 months because you've built a successful business in this space before. I probably won't be adding any value. I probably won't be asking a lot of questions, but just know that after that, once this takes off, I really want to take it in a different direction. That's sort of, we're going to make a difference in healthcare essentially. And he was, yeah, absolutely, let's do it. Um, I'm happy to go with the vision that you set out, and I want to add to this, and I want to do something different myself as well. So we really didn't start off with an extremely detailed business plan, um, but more with a vision that we wanted to make make an impact.
Well, from the yes, or I guess it was like a handshake, a napkin kind of a handshake agreement that we're partnering kind of a thing. From then to, first product sold, first money, first dollar of the company. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So our first 6 months were actually wildly more successful than I would have anticipated. We were manufacturing a lot of disposable products that you need in everyday dental or medical office. And, um, we started off with an office, just, him, myself. I was at the time living in London, so commuting back and forth. Um, and we had one salesperson, and I just remember it's just on the phone. Our website was very rudimentary, but because we were making the products ourselves, because we were sourcing it, and because of my partner's experience, we really had the kind of the right quality and price. Um, and I just remember the first time we got a sale on the phone for $500, I got super excited. I mean, it's because just, I mean, I don't know, it's hard to explain. Remember wanting to buy stuff. That was pretty amazing. And then that happened a few more times. And then suddenly we were doing a few $1,000 in a week. And I was like, I remember the first week we closed, the first month we did maybe $10,000. I was super excited. And then a few months later, we did close to $100,000. And I'm like, holy shit, we're $1 million company, $1 million company. I mean, not making much profit, but it's just the concept, right? And then that first year, we finished at about $3 million of sales,
Wow.
which was, yeah, that was amazing. And that's when you start kind of going on Excel and you extrapolate, and it's like, oh, okay, great. So at this rate, we'll be making $100 million in 5 years. But it doesn't quite happen that way. But yeah, that's that's where the drive comes in. Then you realize, you hit all kinds of challenges and plateaus, and it's not quite steady. But that's when we could start dreaming.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, that's so awesome. What were you just doing? You had a sales guy. What was your kind of goal for getting leads and getting sales? You just cold calling, dentistries and stuff like that, medical practices?
Cold calling. So dentistry has caught up a lot in the last few years, but it's pretty old school. It's emails, it's postcards, and it's promotions. Think about your Bed Bath and Beyond, all promotions and specials and gimmicks and all that stuff. So we had a really good. So my background before that, before actually working in finance directly after grad school, I worked in a data analytics company, and So I just, you know, kind of coded our own CRM, and um, really tracked every single sale that we did. I was able to track exactly what promotion it came from. So I don't want to say it was anything fancy, but I think compared to the people in our industry, it was a little fancy what we did. So we were able to track very, very accurately the yield of each promotion, each flyer with our customers, and based on that, we were able to do some pretty good targeting and using mm, direct mail, and it worked pretty well. It worked really, really well.
So that's for because again, first year 0 to 3 million, it was postcards, emails, and cold calling.
Postcards, email, that's it. Yeah, I want to say the first 5 years, postcards and emails, rinse and repeat, right? Just change the promotion. Now the yields kept going down, down and down and down. After 5 years, you're like, okay, the postcards are not really working that well. We have to do something else.
Everything's more digital.
But yeah, exactly. But even then, like in our industry, I guess unfortunately, because we've tried to do so many different things to try to innovate, the old school ways, the old school promotions still work. It's kind of a very traditional customer mindset. Um, we have older dentists that just barely go online, and we have younger dentists that never want to talk to a sales rep, and we have to cater to both. So it's a lot of very, very different strategies. We have sophisticated email drips on one hand, and on the other hand, we've got somebody banging the phones, and it's yeah, it's challenging from that standpoint. Um, but yeah, that's how we did it.
That is awesome. So what year was that?
So we really started selling in 2009.
2009. When did you
Yeah.
think like, "Oh my goodness, this is it. I've made it." At what point did you kinda come to the realization that like, "Okay, I'm like a big deal now?" I know you're humble and
Uh,
whatnot, but like
yeah.
it is a
You
moment.
know,
It's like, "Oh shoot, I'm not." The $10,000 a month, that's awesome for a company starting out in the first 3 months, it's great, or first month.
so, after the first year, um, I thought I was a much bigger deal than I think I am now. Because
Really?
after the first year, yes, because after first year, when I remember I said we did about 3, 4, and the next year was looking at 6, and again, just thinking that, okay, I could repeat the successes, not knowing all the challenges that were gonna be in front of me. I thought, "Okay, 5-year plan, $100 million, easy, what's next?" Right, "This is boring, this is boring. I know exactly what needs to happen, you know, somebody else do it, what's next?" Um, that's how I felt. But then the problems, the challenges came about, and that kinda humbled me quickly. Um, I I think only recently, not thinking I'm a big deal at all, but just recently can I look back and say, we did quite a bit. We did quite a bit, and I'm happy, and there's more that we can do, but you have to be grateful, for I think it's having gone through all the challenges and having solved all these problems, then you can kinda look back and say, "Okay, we built something real, there's lasting power." I think the success and satisfaction, um, comes from just the people that are with us, that have, especially the people that have been there from the beginning, that are still here now. Um, just the satisfaction that they've grown, they're making they're making good money, and when we go to a convention, everybody knows us. Um, it's it's that more than it is the revenue number, I should say.
Mm. Well, was there like a time, because I know with those other companies, were those more pre-concept, pre-revenue kind of companies, the one with the plastic into crude oil. Were you guys actually like, again, you were saying now you have to do it in large scale, but were you guys like actually making money? So it was like, oh, because obviously you went into that thinking this is going to be a huge
Right.
company, all these different things, and you were scaling, you had lots of money coming in, you were like, okay, we made it. But then obviously it all went, it's just crazy, 150 million to now you're worth zero.
Because yeah, I think the main thing is they were, for the most it was a pre-revenue company. So yes, money was coming in, we're getting great valuations. but we were making product, but there was no revenue, and so it didn't feel real. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's why it was so important for me in the next venture to say, I have to sell something. I have to know a customer is buying something. I have to sell something. Um, and it was even like, forget profits, forget everything. Step one, let's get $2 million of sales. And then, if we can get to $1 million, I can get to two, I can get to three. But um, how do I prove to myself that we have a running business? So making that shift from kind of trying to build a dream to that, and it not working out a couple of times, um, uh, really made me want to do something a bit more, tangible.
Mhm.
And again, this was on the heels of the credit crisis as well, where the stock market dropped 70%. At that
Well, even
point,
then,
it was
yeah,
just
everybody's holding their money and
exactly. Well, at that point, I was just thinking that before that, I wanted to how do I make $1 billion? After that, I was thinking, you know what? I've been out of the I've been out of the workplace for a few years. I may not be hireable. Can I create a company that would hire me and allow me to you know just pay my bills? And if I can do that, great, step one. So once I got that, was probably within the second year, I was like, okay, step one accomplished. I don't need to be hired somewhere else. I can be independent. Now let's try to build wealth. Let's try to grow. And it's these little things, right? Which is I want to kind of impress on people of when you have your own company, it's you do work really hard, but it is that achieving that freedom of ultimately you just have yourself to report to. That is a huge psychological plus for those of us that do it, and I think it's quite an achievement. It's not easy to do by any means. So those that kind of measure themselves like, oh, unless I hit $1 billion or 100 million, it's not about it. Can you self-sustain doing what you do and doing it your way? Because if you can, it's kind of great. You're not you're setting when you're setting your agenda for the year. It's your agenda. When you're setting the culture, it's your culture. When you're hiring, you hire who you want to hire. I think that's a pretty cool thing.
mm, I love that. And being with, because I love that, and that's, like, one of the best things about being an entrepreneur, and, but also with, like, having a partner, how do you kinda balance, um, answering you guys are both in this together, both have a lot invested into it. How do you kinda go about balances, like, I'm the boss, but it's also, well, you're the boss too, or usually it's is it more of, like, we have a really just a great partnership, a friendship almost, and that we kinda just trust each other, move forward. Because again, it's like, who are you reporting to? "Hey, what did you get done today?" I don't know, like, starting off, there's, like, so many memes of, like, you know, my friend not staying up till 1 AM working on the business with me, he's out having fun instead
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah,
working on the
and
startup.
I know, and it's usually the exception, not true the rule, to have a good partnership. And so I mentioned to you, I'm running two different businesses, so I have different partners on each. But I'll talk a bit about each one separately. But the one that I started the first company with, it is such a seamless uh, relationship. We almost put zero effort in it. And I think that's lucky, right? I can't. There's no formula. I think it's kind of the combination of who we are. I think we've changed titles multiple times. At some point, I was CEO, then he was CEO. Then I was like, you know what? I don't. There were some tough times where, like, you know what? I don't want to be CEO. I don't want to get these phone calls coming into me. Just, can I be just president? And okay, you take president. And more recently, we decided, okay, let's both be co-CEO. But we sort of know what we need to do. We have a pretty good division of labor, or of there's certain things that I'm more focused on naturally, and I'm more involved with. So, marketing, for example, is one of those. Setting the vision, anything that's kind of digital. He's a bit more focused on the operational side, but it depends. Sometimes there's an operational component where I get more involved because it involves numbers, or some tough problem that I enjoy doing. So it's we really don't have a formula. It's hard to explain. It's like a dance. It really is like a dance where you flow well with the other partner, and you just don't have to say, "Hey, you move this way, you move that way." You kind of feel it, um, and there's absolutely zero ego between the two of us. Um, but I think what works is, again, like I think more long term. I worry about next year. He worries about today. Um, and I worry about the brand. He worries about today's sales. That's the main. And so between the two of us, we worry about the right things.
Hmm.
There's some negatives to this, though. We've discussed it quite often. Of sometimes and this is true for kind of I think staffing decisions that we've had in the past, where you've heard this kind of concept of hire slow, fire fast. We used to hire really slowly and fire even slower. Um, we've changed that. But when you are with so usually for us to change our minds on something or on somebody or somewhat, we both have to have the same kind of opinion. So if one of us has a different opinion, we end up kind of debating a lot of it, and it kind of delays the situation. So that's a problem. Say, for example, with an employee what we may have a person where, I'm done with it. I don't think that they're going to work out, but, my partner is still kind of, positive on them or unclear. And so it ends up kind of lingering. Or in a situation where, I want to do it one way and he wants to do it the other way. Sometimes you end up with compromises. That means that we are both kind of accepting a mediocre version of what we want. You know what I mean? You compromise too much. And so you end up with something nobody's excited about. And that could yield bad decisions. So those are the negatives of having maybe um, too much reliance on a partnership, or maybe just not very clear delineation of everything's on this side, it's all you, everything's on this side, is all me. But for the most part, it's worked out really, really well.
Mm. Yeah, that's awesome. That is awesome. What a blessing. I'm curious about your
Yeah.
second business and your second partnership. Kinda how did that come to be? And
So the
actually, first
second,
off, so
yeah,
the first business is stuff like dental trays, like the wrappings, I'm assuming that go over
yeah,
utensils and stuff. Any other
everything that
things?
you would need, everything that you would need in a dental office. Now we've wrapped up a lot of that in terms of, building a lot of great tools online, automation, inventory management kind of capabilities to be able to deliver all that in a seamless way. We do about half of our business is using subscriptions, which nobody does in dental. But essentially, that's the products we provide. Um, when we started out, if you remember, we wanted to do something pretty impactful from an environmental perspective. And so we did that by either partnering or making our own products and services focusing on waste management. That's the biggest problem in dental. And and so we had a kind of a division, a waste management division within our dental company. Um, but it was something that from a cultural standpoint is very different from what we sell day to day. So a waste management service, and it's actually quite, there's a lot of regulations. It's quite technical. It's a sale that doesn't, you don't get the sale done in 10 minutes. It takes a few days. There's a proposal. And if you're lucky, you'll make a sale for a few $1,000. Whereas on the dental side, you know, uh, our average salesperson can bring in 5 to 10K every day. So it was very hard to put a salesperson that had to work their ass off to try to make a few $100 next to a salesperson that just picked up the phone and just sold $2,000, you know? I rang the bell and everything, and the other person's like, "What the hell's going on?" So it doesn't matter how differently you pay them; it was just very, very difficult. So we realized that we couldn't really do the waste management in the same premises. At the same time, um, we also knew that the biggest market in waste management was not in dental; was outside. And so this is where we went, and we went to the essentially the largest company that dealt with that, and we spoke with their sales director to help us improve, or figure out how we would be able to solve our problems. And in the end, we asked the sales director if they wanted to start a company with us to tackle that. And that's how we started the other company, Pureway, which is essentially kind of taking the whole waste management side of things and building a company around that, not just for dental, but for medical, for pharma, and so on. Um, and then we did that about 5 years after starting Pure Life, and that's been a fantastic growth story as well. The company's been growing at 30% plus for the last 5 years. Yeah, I mean, it's driven by, more and more people are, self-injecting and creating a lot of waste. We have all these it's more consumer focused too, uh, and consumers actually care about, the environment versus the average business. So um, yeah, that's been a fantastic growth opportunity there.
So the second company that you're doing is the waste management,
Yes.
which is the and now to describe that, it would be, um, like used blood, uh, stuff that has, like, blood
Yeah,
on it and needles and whatnot.
exactly, and it's essentially providing either healthcare facilities or consumers at home with the ability to return and or recycle their spent needles or other medical waste. So for a healthcare facility, it could be needles, but it could also be pharmaceutical waste. It could also be chemo type waste, and so on. So um, we started the company essentially, you know, cold calling individual medical and dental offices, but right now we have major partnerships with pretty much all the largest pharmaceutical companies, because they partner with us to provide these solutions to their patients. But it turns out that, I don't want to name drug names here, but some of these key drugs that are out there, these huge, they're multi-billion dollar drugs, these pharmaceutical companies have figured out that the patient, there's a stress point for the patient of what to do with these injections. And um, disposal is one of those stress points. Recycling is one of those stress points. And patients that are offered a solution are more likely, believe it or not, to stay on that drug, right? On that regimen. Even if it influences by a few percent, it's a big deal for them, because that translates into, billions of dollars of extra revenue. So we work with the pharmaceutical company to essentially mm, uh, give them a better user experience for the patient. And then we help the patient essentially have a safer way of disposing of their injectables. And then we also recycle it. So for a lot of the pharma companies, that helps them achieve their ESG goals.
Mm. So this is
And yeah,
this is the second business though, right? The waste.
right.
And so
Yeah,
you
it's
said
called
you have a
Pure Way.
different partner?
Yeah.
Pureway has a different
Yes.
partner than the first one?
So uh, in Pure Life with two partners, in Pure Way we are three partners, and so my partner from Pure Life is also partner in Pure Way as well.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
And then so Pureway, that third one is the waste management kind of that's his main, I guess, role and kind of the value he brought in. Why
Correct.
couldn't you guys just do it, just you and your original partner?
Um. So
Because
I mean,
obviously, I'll
yeah,
backtrack that with a better question is equity is the most expensive thing you can possibly give away.
yeah.
And you guys seem to work together really well. Why add a third person to split?
So there's many answers to that. Uh, the expertise of our third partner is by far invaluable in having built this company, because on the medical and regulation front, it's a lot more involved. It's hard to explain. There's very few people that understand the business the way he did, and I do not think, frankly, that we could have done it without him. And the equity that was carved out, you know, it's 100% in this situation was more of a skills gap. Um, and you can always learn something, right? But then if it takes you 10 years to figure it out, that's not the right call.
Do your businesses help each other out, kinda like the dental, they kinda work together? And were you able to
So
transition when you first started the waste company, you kinda just transitioned certain clients and whatnot, so you kind of were like, "Hey, let's start this new business, we already kinda have revenue, potential revenue."
yeah, for sure, and that's the great thing of when you have multiple businesses that are tangential, you can do that. So um, certainly, the two businesses use a lot of similar facilities initially. Mm, uh, we had similar staffing overlapping. So if we needed to do something on the marketing side, then we would, leverage one company's marketing capability versus hiring on the other side. There's also, of course, cash initially. Instead of having, to raise cash, we were able to lend from one company to the other. So the first, excuse me, few years, there was a lot of helping the first company, Pure Life, helping Pure Way. Um, and then there's also I think a great way of one of the great helps was leveraging customers. So Pure Way is significantly broadened beyond dental, right? It's doing all of healthcare, but in the initial customer segment were the dental customers, and so we were able to essentially lend our customers to Pure Way so that they could do their work. We would also focus our sales reps on pushing some of their products. So that help is invaluable. And then throughout the years, we kind of reduced that exposure, and now the two companies are fully separate. But yeah, that's important. And that's the thing with once you've if our customers or our industry is healthcare, and we have relationships with the dental offices, medical offices, pharmaceutical offices. Um, if I were to start a third company, for example, I actually really like it to be in that space for multiple reasons. One is I think healthcare is huge, and to me, there's so much that can be done there. But um, we already have so many of the relationships. We already know so many of the pain points, um, how to market, what to do, what not to do. Um, um, we can reduce risk significantly, being in that space, having those companies established there.
Mm, and that kinda, like when you were saying that kinda brought me to a thought. A lot of people will be like, "Oh, I've tapped out my market," you know? "There's only so many dentists, in the world that I can market to, and there's other competitors," and you're having to compete prices. Um, what kind of advice do you have for people like that that think that they've
Look, I think it depends on I'm just on one small segment of it, but I know the customers. So the question is, if I wanted to stay in dental and I've tapped out in terms of selling them, toothbrushes, trays, and stuff like that. Um, what's to say that I cannot come in and say, all right, well, let me go on the patient side. I mean, there's a w- one venue that we've tried to look at a long time ago, and I still want to be able to do it, but it's got challenges, is doing, cancer diagnostics saliva from the dental practice chair. I'm just mentioning this because that's kind of like a big dream of mine, of being able to do that, because I think the impact is, it's like 20 think about 23andMe, but 23andMe just tells you um, genetically what you might be predisposed for. But in your saliva, there's so many biomarkers that tell you right now what your cells are doing. And so, for example, a cancer cell, before it's even visible, will start releasing certain um, RNA, mRNA, or proteins that if detected at a small level in saliva, you might be able to do something about it. So um, again, the science is a bit young, but just the idea of, okay, um, there's a potentially revolutionary way of treating people, a real kind of unicorn VC type of opportunity in a dental market, but you know, really at the end, at the other extreme. And so, is it a completely different market? It is a completely different market, but I'm already talking to these customers. So if I wanted to eventually do something like that, I should be doing it from the benefit of where I'm standing because, um, I already sell to them, already speak to them. All those costs are already done. So um, I can try out new ideas that fit those dentists um, at a much lower cost from the venue of where I'm at. So I guess what I'm trying to say is if you've tapped out your market, the question is, have you tapped out in terms of, have you tapped out your customer, right? Because it may be, you might be selling ice cream to a consumer, but, the question is, could you be selling them something else? And that depends, right? It- You know, you might not be able to sell them cars, but what is a tangential thing that you can sell or that you can have a conversation with that same customer? um, and not think about it just in terms of the products that you offer right now.
And, I love that. So, I mean, talking to, like, the person who's doing 10 million a year right now, you would say maybe because well, I love your idea, first off. I mean, not only is it helping people, but it's also a great upsell. You sit in the chair, "Hey, an extra $400, I can give you a quick swab, and next week I'll let you know if you have any possible things of
Right.
cancer." Great
And that's been,
upsell.
and yeah. And by the way, that's very tough to do because turns out nobody wants to do that swab. Your dentist does not want to. Yeah. Well, no dentist as of now wants to swab you because they don't want to have the responsibility to tell you, hey, um, I think you might have blah, blah, blah. Right. Because they're afraid that you as a patient would be like, listen, you're my dentist. Don't tell me that stuff. That's not your role. So I just gave that as an example of something potentially huge. We're not pursuing that idea, but yes, it's
Yeah. I thought
it's
you were
never
doing it
as
like
easy.
a 23andMe, like the company that they're doing it on the behalf. They're just doing the swabbing, but the company is the one
Yeah,
telling them.
yes. But even with all that, I guess the what we found out, and this is where we put that project on ice, is that the dentist is not comfortable. This is where we kind of go into having these conversations with the patient. It's not their comfort zone.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the patient would be open to doing it, right? If offered, I know I would, but the dentist is not. But anyway, I'm interrupting you because you were asking something.
Well, no, now you're opening up more questions to me because, it seems like you did it and then you put it on ice. What kind of R&D do you do before you wanted to launch a new product? I mean, I know you got a tons of products. Actually, I'm gonna back this up and ask this question first. You got a ton of products. Are you making all these products? Are you wholesaling all these products? You're basically just the Amazon of dental consumable items?
So about half of the products we contract manufacture where we have our brand, uh, and about half the products by sales, not by number. We actually just wholesale.
Awesome, awesome. And so when you're adding a new product, are you just I guess with that, it's a little different. You're just like, "Oh, there's a new thing. Let's put it on the website and see if it sells."
Right. So I mean, if for us from a product standpoint, um, it's not a huge reach to be able to try out different products. That's not a big undertaking. What's more of an undertaking is um, product development. So again, the products that have our name, um, where it can require anywhere between 100 to several hundred thousands of dollars to bring the product um, in. We usually can test it out very easily because there's comparative products out there. So we did this in the case of the waste management. there were some comparable products, and we knew, for example, that um, so we modified them, and we knew that the cost structure was not the right one, but we sold it at a loss. So we kind of figure out what's the right price, what's the right service. Let's use existing kind of off the shelf products to make it happen, and let's start selling it. Let's not worry about making it. Let's not worry about making it efficient. Let's just see if we can sell it, and let's sell it at the price that we think is the right price to sell it at. And let's not be afraid to make a small loss, right? So we did that with our waste management products. We did this with new products that we brought to market that were in infection control. And in some cases, it took us 2 years to develop the product ourselves. And we had to lose money for 2 years while we were selling something similar, um, um, using the wrong cost structure at a loss. But what that did is it allowed us. So I'll give you an example, right? I've got an idea for a product. It's going to cost me $500,000. Okay, I could spend $500,000, wait 1 year, and in 1 year I can sell it and hopefully make a profit. What we decided to do is kind of bootstrap it, go ahead and sell a less efficient version of that at a loss. And so in 1 year, I've lost $100,000, but now I feel really good that I want to spend this 500K to develop it. And I know exactly how to develop it because I've learned my lesson in the first year. So it's sort of, I think the strategy involves essentially sell it first and then develop what you promised, mm, to make it profitable. That makes sense.
Mhm. Can you say that again in like a, I don't know, like a couple
Yeah,
sentence thing? Because like I understood that,
yeah,
but I think
yeah,
there's
yeah. So I guess this doesn't apply for everything, but um, in wherever you can, because you can have multiple ideas for products, services, concepts, and so on. Our approach has always been, if you can afford not to develop it perfectly well initially, don't do it. Because if one of out of 10 ideas work out, or 2 out of 10 ideas work out, you don't want to spend the money and the time to develop something that might actually not end up working out. So you kind of bootstrap it, and you sell the product, you put together the product or service. you know you buy from somebody else if you have to. You make some changes. Again, it'll be costly because you're not making it yourself, but then you see if you can create a market for it. And then if you can create a market for it, even if it involves a small loss, then you can make the decision to develop it the formal way. And now when you can make your investment, it'll be for a sure thing rather than, 1 in 10 chances, or 2 in 10 chances.
I love that. So basically, like, oh, hold on. So basically, like
It's
what you're
got
saying is have the
it,
cheapest product or the cheapest way. Sorry, not the cheapest way. I hate to say cheap, but with the least amount of money invested from
yeah,
idea to product to market, get it to market as fast as possible, as affordable as possible to test it out. And if it works, then go all in on quality, um, and scaling that
yeah.
product.
It,
Because
it,
otherwise, if
it's
it works, you go up. If it doesn't work, boom, trash, on to the next.
Yeah, it's the MVP concept, right? For software or anything like that, and or even, for example, here's a practical example. There's lots of ideas all the time about, oh, we should be building this e-commerce capability or that e-commerce capability, and so on. And each idea is probably going to take 2-3 months and cost anywhere to $50,000 to $100,000. Um, Before we kind of launch something that is, perfect UI, automated, and so on. If it's a concept that I can pitch over the phone, I'll give a couple of salespeople, you know 3 variations of that. Why don't you pitch these 3 ideas? Here's different pricing, different configurations, and do that for a week, or 2 weeks or whatever. knowing that if they're able to sell it, it might mean kind of manual work on the back end, or us, kind of, essentially almost, hiring an administrative person to kind of deal with all the back end stuff that you promised was going to be automated, right? Or seamless. Um, but at least this way, right? What's the point of building a capability if you don't even know if you can sell it? So here we sell it, we tell them we can do it, we tell them it's automated, we don't make the sale, nobody's interested. Great, we don't have to worry about it. We made 5 sales, 10 sales. Now we have an idea of what the price is. We're doing all the work in the back end, all the hamster wheel stuff, but then we have 3 months to build it, and then we kind of deploy it in a big scale. It's yeah, just build it fast, as scrappy as you can, and then put it out there.
Mm. As the $100 million man that you are, what does your kind of year look like? How much of the year are you spending on R&D for a new project, and then how much are you spending on your current businesses now, just kind of scaling what you have?
So this year, so we spent a lot of time last year thinking about uh, products we were going to deploy this year. So I'm going to say for the first 6 months, we just have to execute on the R&D that we did last year. Overall, I would say I spend 20% of my time on kind of planning the future, the future tool sets. Um, Dollar wise, we don't spend too much on R&D. We do spend in um, backing up ideas that work. So we're lucky enough to be kind of an industry and a business where, like I said before, we can test pretty quickly. So we'll come up with an idea. It's a cheap, scrappy way of putting it out. If it works out, then we invest in it. So this year we'll be investing in an idea that we R&D last year, but we'll be investing alongside growth. So it's not so much of, you spend the R&D and then you hope it works out. We'll be investing alongside the growth, building out the capabilities. So if you think about it in terms of an app or software, um, we've built version 1.0. We think it's okay to get the first 100 customers. We'll do that. They come in, we'll build 2.0, we'll build 3.0, we'll put 4.0 as they come in. So
Mm,
it's a less risky way of kind of developing.
yeah. Now, you said 100 customers. Is that like an actual number that you go about with 1.0? I know it's product dependent, but
Yeah, yeah, actually, for that one, yes, but it'll be more like 100, then go to 1,000, then go 10,000. But yes, the first 100, I think, is the key one. You know, uh, if you can get to 100 customers, you can get 1,000 customers. That's how we look at it. In dental, we have there's about 150,000 dentists, and we work with about 10,000. So the numbers are not huge, right? Because these are businesses.
for these new things that you're doing in 2026, is this within the current business you have now, or is this a net new company that you're talking about doing?
So it is actually a net new company.
So this
It,
will be company 3.
it'll be company three. Uh, yes, it'll be company three, but it will be highly connected uh, to the company initially, with a plan of eventually becoming its own individual. Hopefully, hopefully in 27. But
Okay.
yes,
How
26
how
we will be incubating it.
how in depth do you go with, these new launches? Like you said, in 27, you obviously kinda have the year planned out. Do you have, like, certain expectations month by month? Do you have a team that you're, like, hiring to help, like, internally that's, like, kinda like a manager of, like, "Okay, hey, incubate this. These are the things we need to get to." Because I know you're can only touch so many things at once.
Look, in a perfect world, I would have a team for every launch, and a dedicated person that lives and breathes that launch. Um, I'm not there. Combination of maybe size, or maybe the challenges uh, that I find in getting managers that are as obsessive or driven by what you are. But essentially, every new launch, every new topic, this is where I come in, and I get involved. I have people that help me out with the execution and so on, and I lean on, and obviously can help me build a better idea. where I spend most of my time. I would say like 50% of my time I spend on, just trying to improve day-to-day stuff. But 50% of my time, I'll lean in onto some of these special projects and kind of make it my baby. So this is going to be one of my babies this year.
When you are messing with your other
And,
businesses.
and the reason why I say this, John, is because these new projects have zero revenue, and so it's hard to get anybody excited about a zero revenue project, especially when they're not getting paid for it. So, um, and again, this is maybe kind of our own organization, but this is where I love. This is what I love to do. I love to build new ideas.
Mm. So to give you time to kinda step away from your old idea, do you have? Because I mean, your businesses are very, awesome. I love, you know, consumer packaged goods, things that are recurring, subscriptions, like you said, you're kinda one of the only ones that have a subscription model. Phenomenal because, your LTV is so much bigger than your cost to acquire a customer for first time purchase
Yeah.
profitability. Um Do you kinda have, like, systems set up for that, so you can kinda step away and all it is just kind of like, I put in a dollar, I know pretty much how much I'm getting out of these different systems and, I mean, ultimately, a lot of stuff is on recurring, so you're just kind of taking your I mean, I know I'm kinda saying this confusingly, but you're kinda taking your time getting new customers, and the recurring customers, you kinda have, like, a systemized thing that there's no stress, they're just continuing to buy.
Yeah. So, across the different businesses, we have a various degrees of how should I say, how what customer retention looks like, and what uh, a subscription really looks like. If I go to the extreme, so on the medical waste management side, we have large contracts um, with companies, and aside from the operational, making sure everything's taken care of, once we have that customer, uh, we can feel pretty good that we can move on to the next one, right? Sort of, you're building the bricks, uh, brick by brick. So um, it's very much incremental. Um, on the dental side, we have a product subscription, which is good, but it's not infallible because they can unsubscribe from that product, and they can cancel anytime. So it's certainly better than having no subscription, but you still have to do a lot of you still have to fight for that business. We are introducing other kinds of subscriptions that are more sticky, and the other program that we just talked about is a much more, so sort of, you get a customer once and then you don't have to worry about it. You can move on to the next one. So we have all kinds of different subscriptions that we are looking at. And yes, they go from like, okay, cool, you get a customer, you're done, to okay, that's good, but we still have to work hard on it. So it's certainly trying to evolve towards getting more of the subscription types where um, it's a longer term contract. It's not something they're likely to cancel, and we're not street fighting every single day to keep the business.
Mm. For the churn rate for your, subscription cancellations, what have you found that is the biggest reason why people churn? Is it, competitors come in with better pricing? Is it because?
Um, it's part of it is I mean, it's half half. Half of it is better pricing, but it does protect you in a sense that they will only change. Um, they're less likely to change even with better pricing, right? Because a part of the subscription, what the subscription does is essentially give them kind of planning tools and visibility. And where they switch because of better pricing is because, frankly, we've kind of dropped the ball and not making sure that the subscription price is highly competitive, which is supposed to be. So pricing is one of them, but I think a bigger part of it is the natural state of how some people abuse subscriptions. So we have a lot of these great first time subscriptions and things like that. And so you always have customers kind of playing the game of like, oh, sure, I'll subscribe, get the discount. Let me cancel. Let me resubscribe. Let me cancel. And we let that happen because, I figured if they like to play that game, let them play that game with our website and or our apps, and it's better than it's better than playing that game with another company.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, if you're that cheap to do that, then you're probably not the client that you'd want anyway, so
Exactly, exactly. And I was listening to this interview with Jeff Bezos on how when they uncovered Prime. Initially, apparently, I don't know if you've heard that, but when they came up with the concept of Prime, they ran the numbers. They're like, we're gonna lose a lot of money. It's just not going to be sustainable because all the abusers will just buy a small product and get it for free, and it turns out they still launched a program because they thought that even though the cheap guys were gonna take advantage of the Prime program initially, it would eventually broaden up and it would be mass adopted. But yes, they did lose a lot of money initially because the ones that took advantage of Prime were the ones that bought almost nothing and wanted free delivery. So again, sometimes you always have to, you cannot have a program that's going to make money on every single customer. You got some very smart customers, and some of them they like it. It's a sport, right? They know exactly how to game the system, um, and they're going to spend hours and hours to try to figure it out. Maybe they deserve it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, some in a lot of companies, I mean, that's a whole entire job as a purchaser, to make sure all the inventory is in stock, and so that's their job is to, look at the
Right.
numbers and different things. What have you found though that you've applied to your business that maybe we could take away to stop the churn rate?
So to stop, so slow down the churn rate because there's always churn is more communication. We found out that price changes, for example, that's always a sore point, and sometimes you got to do it. Sometimes it's because of tariffs, sometimes because of inflation, whatnot. Uh, we've always kind of shied away from communicating, that, hoping that because it's a dirty word, right? We have to increase your prices, and so we do it, hoping nobody notices. And it turns out it pisses people off. So what we are doing more and more now is just being proactive and educating people on why, um, if and when prices go up. And yes, there's always churn from that, but what we found out is, I guess it's basic, but people just want to understand. They want communication. They want a heads up. Most of our customers, when another effect causing churn is when we misexecute um, our logistics and so on. And we found that our customers are much more understanding than we ever expected, but they just want communication. If we do mess something up, they want to know about it, and they want to know what you're doing not to make it happen again. And for the most part, they'll forgive you, and that's better than not communicating. So yeah, communication is key. Communicating with your customers. It sounds basic, but sometimes you don't want to give bad news. But it's better to give bad news than no news, I guess, or no surprises.
How do you kinda manage that communication? Are you having a lot of AI that people are having, a chatbot, you're kinda like training an AI, or are you, having people reach out, your sales guys are reaching out, kinda how do you go through that customer communication to
So,
keep them sticky?
um, yeah, it depends on the company. On the For PureWay, on our waste management company, we introduce a lot of AI. To one is that we have huge amount of call volumes, a lot of them dealing with consumers. So we've implemented a lot of AI tools. One is to understand exactly what kind of issues are coming about. So we have management reports, management dashboards, and we can have in real time a pulse of what's going on, so we can better coach or intervene with our customer service reps. We have, because a lot of it is, we found out that maybe 99% of questions we can have AI help them out. So we've put in pretty much all of our product knowledge, all the regulations, anything you can think about the space, we've kind of loaded into a knowledge center that our AI bot leverages from. So they're able to really assist extremely well. Very technical questions from customers for 98% of their questions, and we seamlessly kind of bring them to a rep for the other 2%, or if they need it. Um, on the dental side, we have more of an old school type of situation. So we've tried to deploy some AI tools, but um, they were not really successful. So we're still right now uh, email and just real people talking to real customers.
How much, communication do those people have with those customers? Is it like a once a week thing that you specifically like because obviously there's a
Yeah.
at some point there's a diminishing returns, too much communication, too much, personal relationship, but obviously you wanna, "Hey, how you doing? How's everything? Are you happy with the products?" Like a good check-in, or you guys find that that doesn't really matter, it doesn't change the numbers?
So we once a month per customer is the average. It's a general check-in, and that check-in could be for multiple reasons, letting know, seeing how their order went, if they need anything from us. But a lot of times we kind of giving them our industry is very promotion oriented, so we kind of give them a heads up on deals that we have, deals that are coming up, and we know that they order on a cycle, and so we want to be and in many cases they don't just have us as a supplier, they have another one or a couple of other ones. So we want to make sure we are front of mind. So we call with usually a decent reason to call, right? As opposed to, hey, what do you want to buy today? We'll come up with a decent reason to call, and we'll try to be front of mind for them.
Yeah, and I'm assuming it's, probably pretty much right before their next subscription or their next purchase, you kinda have, like, a
Yeah,
timeline of how much they bought versus how much they use, and they're like, "Okay, let's make sure we give them a call."
exactly. And multiple touch points. We have all these reports. If they haven't, uh, we have more proactive touch points. If they haven't called us in a certain amount of time, they haven't done any activity in a certain amount of time, then we might be more keen to reach out and see what's going on. Oh, one interesting thing that we've seen is for new customers, we've seen that our if we get 3 orders out of a customer in the first 2 months, we have a 90% chance of retaining them. But if we only get one order, we have an 80% chance of losing them. So we're very focused on on trying to get those first three
Second
orders.
yeah, 2nd
Yeah,
and 3rd order. Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
What's your strategy for doing that? What have you found that's working so far?
So we basically incentivize our sales reps heavily on those first 3 orders, and we give them the tools to provide extremely attractive promotions for those first few orders. And we also have a huge emphasis on customer service, following up with them on the first few orders. And the reason why we have to incentivize the sales reps heavily is it's just like, you know, typical sales, the way they're wired, they're more about the short term versus the long term. So a new customer is typically not going to order a lot, right? Um, um, they don't know you. They um, so their wallet share is very small. So getting an order from a new customer, you might get a few $100s. Getting an order from an existing customer, it might be a few $1,000s. So from a salesperson standpoint, where they're paying on commission, their time is much better spent talking to an existing customers, knowing that the sales going to be much higher, and it's probably going to be an easier conversation, more friendly conversation. So a new customer seems like low priority. And so this is why we have to incentivize a new customer much more. So it's a much bigger part of their pay so that they can make that investment. Because ultimately, if they don't make the investment, when 6 months down the line, they're not going to reap the rewards of our customer acquisition. So it's trying to essentially, I don't say bribe, but really overly incentivize sales reps to take care of customer acquisition because it might not pay off for them in the next month or two if they do that.
Mm. While we're on the sales topics, I want to talk about plateaus. And where did you hit those plateaus? Was it a sales issue? Was it a R&D issue? Tell me a little bit about your plateaus.
So the first plateau we hit was just because of limited products. Um, we didn't have enough products, and we were at a few hundred products, for example, and sales growth really, slowed down. Um, and we try to solve that. I guess what we should have done is at that point continue with these products and build much better capabilities from our e-commerce standpoint, because I think there was a much bigger opportunity there. But what we thought our quick reaction was, let's get a boatload more products. And this is where we opened up to wholesaling, and and we ended up essentially carrying a few hundred products to over 10,000 products in 2 years. And yes, that helped. So
A
that
lot of SKUs.
helped. A lot of SKUs. Yeah. So that helped break the plateau, but that created exponentially more problems for us. Um, and so looking back, I would say maybe we should have tried to spend a bit more time solving the problem of, we still had a lot of market share we could have gone with those few hundred products. And it would have been a lot easier to grow, a lot more profitable, rather than say, mm, it's the typical kind of, businesses that just diversify too quickly, right? Or at some point, McDonald's started offering all these kind of salads and all kinds of things, and just to make more money, but then they just lost focus. So that was a big distraction for us, but and one we had to pay for 5 years until the next plateau came about. But yeah, I think plateaus are natural; they happen. You get good at something, and then it hits a wall, and then you just have to retool. You just say like, what's the next thing? And we had a few of those. We had a few of those for Pure Way on the waste management side as well.
Yeah. For like a company like yours with many SKUs like that, I mean, having 10,000, having, a client getting sent traffic. I know you have sales guys, and I'm curious kind of about how that process, but having a client maybe from an ad or something like that, they show up to your website. I'm sure you have lots of easy ways for them to do filters to find the certain kind of products they want. But 10,000 SKUs is so many SKUs. How do you know, is that just kind of like a number? Hey, we have 10,000 SKUs on our website. Look how big we are. But I mean, ultimately, I'm assuming a lot of those products out of those 10,000, that's so much for somebody to like scroll through to see all the things they need, just don't get sold, and you just kind of have things on there that sit.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest problem and challenge in our industry. Um, there are maybe 200,000 possible SKUs, or 300,000, or probably more, but at least a few 100,000 SKUs to satisfy the needs of our customers. And so uh, the question is, what do you carry, and how much of it do you carry? I mean, even with the 10,000 SKUs that we currently have, the difference between carrying the right amount of inventory for the right SKUs versus not could be $10 million of inventory, right? So you don't want to make a $10 million mistake, otherwise you end up having $10 million worth of stuff you're never going to sell. So it's a tough problem, and it's a tough problem. It's one that we're continuously working on. It's one that I've spent a lot of time myself to try to kind of model it out. And I haven't found a lot of tools that could help us with this until recently. So we're about to implement some inventory kind of demand planning tools internally that can help us with that. But it's a big one. It's a big one. It's an art. It's also making the tough calls of, you know, for there's about maybe out of those 10,000, there's probably 6,000 SKUs where I'm just not going to do a great job at it, right? And because for me to do a great job at it, I need to carry an extra $10 million of inventory, which I can't. How do I tell customers I've got 10,000 SKUs, but I'm really reliable on 2 to 3,000? It's a tough dance.
Mm. Is this new software, is this, like, something that your team is making internally, or is this, like, a software?
No, it's a software that we can add on. I have it's a software we found recently that allows us to, has enough sort of, what do you call this? Parameters that you can change where you can control it. We've
What's
been
the name
looking
of it?
for it. Fuck. Yeah, it's a really good tool. It plugs into NetSuite. And more importantly, it allows you to run multiple different scenarios. Um, and that's what we didn't see in other tool set. That's why I did it myself, with a tool that we built internally, is we need to know based on different decisions what it means in terms of inventory. Because if a lot of these tools you get out there, you plug it in and it tells you what to order. Uh, Again, let's say you've got $1 million to buy stuff and the software tells you you got to place a $4 million in orders. What are you going to do? I can't do that, right? So if I were to place, maybe I can afford $1.5 million. If I was going to do 1.5, where should I, you know, what do I squeeze and what do I not squeeze? So um, purchasing is easy to do if you don't have resource constraints, right? I mean, let me get 2 months of inventory of everything, but if you're in the real world and you have that, and in our industry, even our largest competitor, which is Henry Schein, a multi-billion-dollar company, they also don't have stock for everything. So it's almost impossible, even with billions of dollars, to carry the right amount of stock. You need some pretty sophisticated algorithm, but also kind of constant eyes on it. And so for us, when we're planning inventory, it's we're also talking to salespeople. We're trying to see, and it's qualitative too. It's like, the salespeople tell us, hey, you know what? If you're running out of this, it's not a big deal. Offices can wait. This product, this product is super important. It's hot right now. You need to have this on board. So it's very dynamic and it's tough.
Yeah. What kind of advice would you give to, somebody kind of starting out? They have maybe 100 SKUs and they're looking to add more SKUs. Um, Before they get to that 10,000 mark, what's some advice that you would give to them on that journey?
So my advice, and if I had to look back, try to figure out as much as possible what you can do uh, before you add any SKUs. It can become, the complexity can become exponential, and the cost can also become exponential. If you absolutely have to add SKUs, add them. But for us, there was a lot of ego associated with that, right? So, super excited when we made the first million, super excited when we tried to do 5 million. But there was an ego side of us, which was, oh, this manufacturer that is very prestigious is looking to work with us. Or could we go after them or not? And it was always, yes, absolutely. If we have these products, we're going to elevate our brand, elevate our status. We're going to have these fancier products, these more expensive products. We're going to go from, you know, uh, chair covers to equipment, right? We're doing tech now. It's sexy. It's cool. It must mean that we're doing well. That's the illusion. Or selling pharmaceuticals, right? That requires a license. Well, that's cool. We can do that now. We're sophisticated. We have all this tracking system. Um, but really, there are huge markets in single products, right? Dollar Shave Club, right? I mean, would Dollar Shave Club have done as well if their model was, I don't know, dollar everything you need in a bathroom club? I mean, its focus is good, and there's a lot of money to be made in being very focused and doing it extremely well. So I would say, yeah, before you expand, just ask yourself, does it make sense? Is it a prestige ego, or is there really a market need for it? And get stronger and better at what you do before you expand. Again, like, when you've got 100 products, you know where everything is. You really don't need software. Everything works, right? You don't need sophisticated hires to move your inventory. You don't need sophisticated hires to pack stuff, because it's easy. You know everything is. You've got 10,000 SKUs. You need senior people, senior software, licenses. Yeah, it's complicated.
You brought up my next kind of question that you were saying here is those challenges in building an upper management structure. You can tell me a little bit
Yeah.
about that and your advice on that?
Yeah. So we have had challenges in our evolution with upper management. And, it's kind of been touch and go where, well, I'll give you an example in terms of marketing. We've had successful years where we had a director of marketing, marketing manager, and then people doing the marketing work. And usually I'll act as CMO. Um, and then we've had successful years where it's just me working with a junior marketing person. Um, and so the evolution that we've seen is sometimes when you get senior management, they are not able to, if they share your vision, or for the time they share your vision, it's great because they can help implement it. But at some point, that vision changes, or you're looking to do something else, and they are set in their ways for some reason. Um, and then they essentially are stuck in a role that you don't need them anymore. And so we've had challenges in trying to get senior people to move at the same rate as the company was moving. And I don't know if it's just us. I don't know if you uh, see that with other companies that you talk to. There's obviously a lot to be said about getting the right people on delegation, but we found it always kind of quite a challenge to get senior management where I feel like, look, for example, some of these projects I want to launch that I feel like, okay, they've got it. They've got the same vision, passion to execute on that as I do.
Hmm. Yeah. So when you have these like you're saying it's you, your partner, but you guys like will hire on, your CFO, your CMO. When you say upper management, are you talking about people that are covering big majority of items, or are you guys
Yes.
running a pretty lean and mean team?
So we have run teams in a lean way, and we have run teams with extra management layers, is what I'm trying to say. And we have often found out that when you have these extra management layers, it doesn't always add value. It at least for us, and this is something that we've struggled with, right? So I'm not saying that's not the right way to do it, but um, you know, you end up having more conversations about a direction you want to keep. So uh, take sales. We've got sales management. Yeah, you've got salespeople. You got sales directors. Um, the direction of how to move the sales team, how to incentivize them, comes from us, from the founders. When we try to get that done at a senior management level, it often derailed. It often created conflicts within the salespeople. It often created situations where compensation structures were misaligned, and we always felt like we had to come back and clean it up. So in the end, it was always about, I'm trying to empower a senior sales manager to do their job, but they're causing more problems than they are solving, if you will. It's Yeah, sometimes you gotta get rid of the middleman and just go. I think it's maybe a question of size. It's also a question of we do change direction pretty quickly. Not major directions, but we do kind of adapt quickly. Uh, um, I think there's an entrepreneurial mindset that is hard to find in a senior manager. Maybe that's the better thing to say, because if we were much more established as a company, much more set in our ways, it'd be easier to set those senior people with very key defined inputs and outputs. But when you as a company, when you are moving, sometimes senior managers can remain static and create more friction.
I love that. That's good advice. That's good advice. I want to kind of bring us to the couple last questions here. I really appreciate your time, and I know we've gone like way over, but you're
Yeah, no worries.
dropping super golden advice here. I want to talk a little bit about first off, like family. I know I mentioned that. I just wanted to hear kind of what's your thoughts on family and business and times, and I know being a founder, there's it's a 24/7 thing.
I mean, family, kids. It's it's definitely the most important thing for me. And I think when you are, I'll bring some collective experience from not just myself, but my other partners. Um, it is very difficult to run a business, um, and also not feel like you're missing out on your family obligations. And it's not just about the time, but when you come home and you've got all these worries and all these things on your mind, staying present. I'm getting a lot better at it than I used to. In fact, I'm home a lot more than I used to be, and now my kids are telling me I don't work enough. So so I'm just trying to tell them, like, listen, it's actually a good thing that I'm home. It's not a bad thing. But yeah, I mean, my 17-year-old told me recently, well, I don't understand. Yeah, you used to be locked in. You used to, like, we never used to see you, and now we're seeing you all the time. It's like, yeah, that it's a good thing. It's a good thing. I'm doing something right. But yeah, I think it's you have to make the time, and this is going back to kind of waking up early. Just look at those time slots that are non-negotiable as much as possible. And if say you want to make 7 to 10 or whatever time slots you want, or some family activity, if you want to make that non-negotiable, you really have to try to make it non-negotiable. And that's why you have to plan your day. And if something big happens and you have to wake up at 4 in the morning to get it happen, just do that so it doesn't um uh, but it doesn't creep up, because it's very easy to show up in the office and you want to be home at 5, but then it's 8 and things are still happening. And unless you put in that discipline of, like, no, today I am leaving at 6, and that may mean that I'm cutting my lunch short, or, you know, I gotta wake up earlier, or I'm gonna, whatever that is. So you have to try to be really structured. The other thing is, and I've heard this from other people too, is you have to do the work that is required to check out. So I don't know if you do that, John, but it's like, in the morning, you need, like, whatever, 10 minutes, 30 minutes to get yourself into the mood of what you're going to do that day, right? What do you want to do? What you're okay not to do? And kind of, before you react to all the emails and the asks, just have your own agenda, right? So you're not just reacting to tasks. And then before leaving for work, for example, sorry, before going home, part of what I do is I'll create in my notes everything I have to do for the next day, so I'm all set, and I'll just take the drive home to kind of clear my head. And as much as possible, when I'm home, I'm not thinking about work. I try to be kind of in tune with as present as possible. Um, but yeah, it's something you got to work on every day.
Mm, I love that. I love that. Kind of going from family and how you're educating your kids. I'm curious on like how you educate yourself. What did you find valuable? Do you read books, listen to podcasts, mentors, and then kind of want to hear like what you do about yourself, and then how you're implementing that into teaching your children. I'm assuming your oldest son is the 17-year-old,
Yes,
and then
yes,
so him being a young man wanting
yeah.
to teach him, I'm sure how to be successful in life. I'm curious on how you're going to go about all that.
So, I I try to read a lot, and when I say read, I quote unquote because I listen to a lot of audiobooks.
Same. I love audiobooks.
Yeah, I love audiobooks too. And I'm a slow reader, so this really helps me out. So when I go on walks, I'm listening to books. When I drive, I'm listening to books. And people say, look, when you get audiobook, you're not as focused. You get 80%, but 80% is not bad. So I can absorb a lot. So that just and I fly, so I'm a pilot. I love to fly. It's something that it's kind of cerebral. You have to be focused. Like golfing, in a sense, you have to be focused. But if you mess up, you die. So it really helps you stay focused. I love to. I do math on the side. My degree is in aerospace engineering, and I kind of miss the heavy math. So more recently, I've been trying to just pick up on subjects, and it's got nothing to do with work. But that's the beauty of it. It's got nothing to do with work, and but it challenges me. So it's kind of like stretching your mind in different directions. Um, so I like to do a lot of that, and I try to do it in the morning or sometimes on the weekends, and it helps me just kind of be more more well rounded. I also feel like with work, sometimes you're not always on. In charge of how things are going to happen, right? I mean, you can have maximum efforts, but things don't exactly happen how you want it to happen, or in the time frame you want it to happen. So it's easy to lose that feedback loop that says, "Hey, this was a good day," right? I mean, or this was a good month because maybe the money didn't come in you the way you wanted, the projects didn't come in. So having something else, whether it's um, some kind of exercise goal or whatnot, or something that you're learning or um, that you can control 100% is nice to have. Right?
Mm, I love
I
that.
want to be able. You're right. I mean, it's and I've noticed that. That's one of the things I was telling my kids is the time. There was a time where I was really training really hard for marathons and ultra marathons and all that stuff. That was actually, I told him, that was the time where work was the toughest, where I had the most amount of challenges. And my other partner in Texas was also doing that. He did the Ironman, and which is a lot tougher. I couldn't do an Ironman. Uh, and we were talking about how this is, you can control that, and it's just nice to have some growth that you can control versus work, hard to control. I mean, you do the best you can, but you can't control it day to day, or even relationships, right? You can't, your wife, your friends, your family. It takes more than one person, but there's certain things when it's just you, whether it's learning a language or trying to run faster or longer or whatnot, or reading X books, you control that 100%. That's nice. So I try to teach that to my kids and just also just the value of hard work. I think there's so much out there now on social media of people getting super successful really quickly, and what I try to tell my kids is try to do something you enjoy, because if being successful equals making money, there's a lot of luck on that, right? So if you're doing something you don't like and you're waiting for the money to come in, you might have to wait a long time, and it may never be good enough. So, and what if it never happens? Then you've wasted your time and you were miserable. If you do something you like and the money doesn't come in, yeah, at least you're doing something you like, and it's impactful and you're adding value. So just trying to show them success is not really correlated with purely financial, because there's so much stuff out there now on social media, just preaching the opposite. I think reality is a lot less sexy than what we see out there.
Mm. So how are you teaching, or how are you planning on teaching your son to be successful?
I always tell him that, and I have 3 kids, so I teach that to all of them, that really, if you work hard at something, you will enjoy the fruits of your labor so much more. So just do your best and something you like, and you will be successful. And success meaning like you will be happy. I found that out too in terms of how do I, we've had tough years. How do I take a tough year where every single day is tough and turn that in a situation where I come home every day to some extent and be happy with myself? And this is part of trying to be positive is okay, if I can look at a tough year as somebody beating me up every day and it's miserable, and I come home and I'm beat up and I'm losing, where I can look at it, it's a tough year because these are real challenges, right? It's a tough math. I'm facing a tough math problem. And every single day, I'm going to try to fix it, work hard at it, and chip away at it. And every time I come home, I know I would have faced a tough problem, I would have learned something, and I would have chipped at it. And that in itself is rewarding.
Mm,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
So take the fighter analogy. I could say, okay, I got beat up every single day. Or I could say, no, actually, I went in the ring every single day with a really tough fighter. And every day I'm getting stronger. And every day I'm able to land a few punches. That's pretty good.
What's your biggest distraction for you?
Um, in what
I guess I would say, like,
profession? Yeah.
from being getting to the next level, sometimes through the day, something do you have something that's like, for me, sometimes it's waking up in the morning on a time because I wanna be productive, and I wanna
Yeah.
sleep an extra 30 minutes. No, I need to wake up these extra 30 minutes because I personally
Yes.
I like to get up and get an espresso shot and just get right to work. That way I can make sure I'm done at 5 o'clock. I'm done because my wife and I have a kid too, so I like listening to, like, what you're gonna do with your son because I have a little 4-year-old, and he's the love of my life, and I try to
Yeah. Four is
he's gonna
awesome.
be my little buddy.
Well,
We're gonna work together
yeah.
and do stuff, so I'm excited for that, but, um, yeah, just kinda like what's your biggest distractions, and what are you doing to, overcome that?
I mean, look, aside from all the distractions that we all have, which is, the whole kind of meaningless scrolling, I'm seeing my addiction get worse. And so I'm really trying to control that. Um, I think my biggest distraction is it is easy, it is easier to take care of any task that is in front of you where you can do some anything that can keep you busy right now is easier to do than working on something that is meaningful,
Gosh, that's so true.
that is less defined,
Yes.
right? So
Procrastination with busy work,
pro-
you know?
procrastinating busy work, right? So and this is where it comes back to when I try to create my notes of carving out time where, I pick a topic that is, I don't know, new project, blah, blah, blah. I give myself 2 hours, 3 hours, but that's ideal. You know what's going to happen in these 3 hours? People are going to walk in, ask me questions. I'm going to answer. I'm going to make myself a coffee. I'm going to find some spreadsheet to update. There's a lot of things that I can do in these 3 hours that make me feel like I've done something, but it is going to be hard for me to, you know, think for 3 hours at a completely brand new topic. So yeah, just I think that requires discipline to not let yourself get sucked into, you know, um, something you can do right away. Because it's we all have that satisfaction of, oh, okay, yeah, I can do this, I can do that, I can make this phone call. But does this really move the needle? No. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's hard. That's hard.
What's your
And
quick
yeah,
one sentence fix to that? Because I mean, that's like such a I so find myself doing that all the time, and I'm like, "Oh, man," I was like, wanting you want that feeling of getting stuff done, but you're like, "Man, I'm doing it not what I planned," you know?
I mean, I don't have any silver bullets except you got to force yourself.
Force
You
yourself.
gotta, yeah, you create a time, like create these, and maybe it's a walk, maybe but yeah, create in your calendar a time where you're just not allowing yourself to do anything else but that. And so the reality is then you're either going to do nothing and feel really bad about it, or you're going to just do that. And again, I'm 50% compliant on that, you know, but yeah, it's hard. And then if you have kids too, and you're working from home, and that's your 2 hour window, you're supposed to do that new task, and your son comes in, and of course, how can you say no? So some
Mhm.
days you might have to. Uh, I mean, for me, it's hard to say no to kids. So, but so that's where you maybe like you go somewhere else, right? You know yourself, but
That's so
yeah,
true.
it's
My
tough.
son comes in and he just wants a hug and wants to sit, and I'm like, "You're so distracting me right now," you
Yeah,
know?
yeah,
It's tough, yeah. That's why coming to the office is nice to, like, have a way
yeah.
out, but it's also nice to work at home.
And look, so many people will say, "Well, no, it doesn't matter what your son does or what happens. This is your time and so on." But again, it's different solutions for different people. I couldn't do that. I mean, your son doesn't care about your plans. He wants your time, and that's everything for him. So that's where you gotta think about at the end of the day, you know, you gotta be able to be malleable.
Things, experiments he wants to try with business, like, all these different things, but, like, that's my whole entire goal is him. So he, of course, emotionally and everything like that, for me, is my priority above, getting something done in the moment. But I do also try to set myself up for success and try to not have him be in an opportunity where he can interrupt me because there's that, but I do
It,
have
it, it yeah, it's
good
a right. I mean, look, it's a right mix, and the reality is, I think that if you were to do everything possible for your kids and sacrifice any selfish need for, or not so selfish to kind of build what you want to build, you're also depriving your kids of something. And I think the kid, they need to see their father and their mother achieving something. That's important. That's part of the education that you are doing this, but obviously not to the extreme of like, hey, don't talk to me because I'm building an empire. Yeah, I also don't believe in the idea of to focus 100% on the kids and erase yourself because that ultimately will not be good for them.
I agree. I love that. I love that. I got one more question for you because I know this has like literally been
Yeah.
such a good podcast. Is if you were giving motivation to yourself right now, kind of give us the motivation as if you were talking to yourself. The motivation. Does that make sense? So, what do you want to hear right now? Like, what are you wanting to hear? What kind of encouragement are you wanting to hear for yourself, where you are in your business and your part of life right now? What kind of motivation would you want to hear?
So the motivation that I wrote for myself, um, but I never fully integrated, continues to be this is a new beginning, have no limits. And the reason why I say this is because I feel like I am, and I think a lot of people are, held back by our past. So you know, we all have kind of like perceived limitations of what we can or cannot do based on our experience, our failures, or education, whatnot. So it is for me, it is very important to truly believe that I can my next chapter in whatever I wanted to do, whether it's professional, whether it's relationships or whatnot, and want to free myself from all the negativity or all the negative things that happened in the past. I really feel like it's a new beginning, and I want to also remove myself of my own kind of limitations that I say. If I could truly believe that, I think I could achieve more, and I do think I would be happier. So I say this to myself. I believe 10% of it. Um, I'd like to believe more.
Mm.
So new beginning, no limits. So every year, new beginning, no limits.
And that's, like, crazy to hear, I mean, from you for being how successful and how big your business is right now. I feel like you would have that there are no limits. You know, you've done it so well. So I think that's a cool mindset that, like, you're like, "Hey, this is a new year, new limits." I think that's awesome. And that's encouraging to me. So a lot of this podcast was really encouraging. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on. Um, and I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it. Thank you. Omar, thank you so much for coming on. This is the $100 million podcast. If you guys found value in this, like, subscribe, share this with somebody that you think will also find value in this. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.